Hello and welcome back to some Reddit League matchups. This week, in week 4, we're in Argentina and we're going to be watching Plouky against MTheBassman. A pretty exciting matchup, and I'm joined once again by Lunacy. How are you?
Hello, I am doing very well today. Ready to watch some Division 1 Geoguessr.
All right, then let us do that. But before we do that, we'll start looking at the map first. Don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, and we are playing on Argentina this week, and more specifically, an AI-generated Argentina map. And for those of you in the Geoguessr community, might be aware that the AI-generated maps tend to have some slight biases, don't they, Lunacy?
Yeah, it almost feels as if it were like wherever, instead of being having locations selected based on where there's more street view, just locations based on sort of geography. Like every like square kilometer of Argentina gets one spot if there is street view there, because there are just so many long rural roads that are in this map compared to what you might find from like an intersection guesser map or a handpicked map.
Yes, I've never actually created an AI generated map, but as far as I am aware, there is that option where you can choose the distance between every location. So you can't just be like, okay, if you take like this square, I only want one location in there, and then you move like a kilometer further, and then you pick one location in there somewhere. I think there's probably other ways to have maps created by an AI too. Um, but that is one way to do it. So it may well be like that. I'm assuming, considering there's over 50,000 locations, it's not one per square kilometer in Argentina, because I feel like that would be a bit much. But yeah, not the easiest map. That's one way to say it. Very rural. And there are some divisions. I'm pretty sure we won't get a cast from Division 5, so I can mention that, where pretty much you got lucky if you found civilization in any of the 5 rounds. Um, it was a very fun seed, but maybe not the best to find something, which is
Yeah, like
interesting for a game like Geoguessr.
Yeah, from what I've seen, this map is really good for training Argentina landscape guessing, but
Yes.
maybe not the best if you're trying to go for like a speed run 25K. But this is a moving league, and these are top players, so maybe they can make something of it. Who knows?
Yep. So let's get into the game and start our first round off now. And, well, there isn't much civilization here at the start, but we'll let them travel for a
The
bit, going in
the
opposite
beautiful,
directions.
yeah, Argentinian landscape.
Oh,
It does look like Basement is the first one to find any clues here,
yeah,
and in
nothing.
fact,
Oh,
yeah, well, he doesn't find anything that's like a city, I think, but he did find a sign mentioning Paraná, which is a very long river that goes through Argentina.
oh, that would have been good to know, wouldn't it? Um, yeah, he does find that. He does find the Club Jardín Náutico Escobar, I think it said. So just
Yeah,
a nautical club, which might lead you to think that you're somewhere near the ocean or a big river. And
perhaps
Pluki
indeed.
Pluki finding a lot of different signs there. Some of them might be
Yeah,
useful.
one sign saying Rio Paraná, so Pluki is also clued in on that particular information. There might be other things there that were mentioned that maybe Pluki understands a bit more than we do.
Well, what was mentioned on that sign also was an area code. Um, I did see that. I don't think Pluki in particular looked at it, but that might be a useful bus to have. And purely the fact that it says line 276 makes me just think it's Buenos Aires. I know it's Buenos Aires because I know the phone code, but where else are you going to have 276 lines of buses in Argentina?
True. Yeah. But given that Plugi found the Paraná sign and has a number of cities now, I think what he's doing is just going down the river looking for those cities, which honestly is a pretty good strategy because it's a long
Yep.
river, but not impossible to scan. Basement, on the other hand, has now returned to the start and turned around and hoping that in the minute that he has left, he can find something useful.
He has also there found an area code for Buenos Aires, the 11, but I don't think he would have learned them. And I think Plouky gave up on finding. Well, I think he's.
Oh,
Oh, there's the
he
nautical
did
club
find
actually.
something because yeah, he said he saw on the bus that said Escobar Pilar, and he found a city near Buenos Aires called
Ah,
something something de Escobar.
yeah,
Perhaps that might be what happened.
essentially. I didn't spot the POI for the nautical club. Well, I say he didn't spot it. He didn't go that direction. So even if there is the sign here that tells him it's there, I didn't actually see the club itself.
Yeah, true. Yeah, Plouky didn't actually see the name of the club, but that's because if he had, he wouldn't have had time to make it to the other side, as
Yes.
Basement is now trying to do. With only 10 seconds left, it's not going to be super helpful because the good clue is the bus, and Basement isn't really going to find that much here. But with that minimal time remaining, Pookie did find the right road and was just 115 meters off, dropping a single point, but still ending with an incredibly good score there.
Yep. 4999. I think might have been the best score of the division there. I'm not actually sure. Um, But yeah, definitely a great score for that first round, and already 2,500 points ahead of Baseman. But as we've mentioned before, that can very quickly turn around in this Argentina map. So let's take a
Very
look
true.
at round 2 now, and we'll see. And well, I mean, that would certainly lend itself to turning scores around, but again, they
Yep.
go in opposite ways, interestingly.
Interesting. Yeah. The way the basement's going has a few more squiggles in the road, but this area looks a bit less tropical, a bit more sandy, a bit darker. Feels much more inland right off the bat.
Yeah, more northern as well.
Yeah.
And
Anything
basically,
that might
yeah.
tell you that it's more northern? I can see like some hills that turn into perhaps mountains there in the distance on basement screen. Anything
It's
else?
mostly to me the kind of red dirt, which you can see in either Salta Jujuy area or in kind of the Misiones area, which is close to Brazil, to the Brazilian border. But it's very like desolate in a way, but there's also a lot of trees. Like you might see roads itself that look similar further south in the country, but they usually won't be as, you won't have as much trees, as much bushes around. Um, and yeah, that's basically it. Uh,
Yeah, and what we were saying earlier, oh, Pluki has found something that is not actually super readable, unfortunately.
yeah,
So he continues going. What I was saying was, I mentioned earlier that there are a lot of long, straight roads. This road isn't particularly straight, which perhaps implies that it's maybe not one of the more main roads. And you can tell that it's also like clearly not paved.
yeah,
But if it were, and if it maybe were a bit more, it looked a bit more like a more major thoroughfare, one thing they might be looking for is a sign for the actual road number, which appears on a lot of the main Argentinian roads, but perhaps not ones like this.
yes. There are still plenty of unpaved roads that are main roads in Argentina, unfortunately. But yeah, this doesn't particularly, strike me as a major one, as Luki is seeing a sign that mentions something about a road number 5.
Yeah, an intersection with ruta, some letters, and the number 5.
Yeah. And there's some
There's more fives.
distances on that sign.
Ah, the first helpful sign, if Fluky knows where those places are.
Yeah. Given how, typical the landscape is here, his search radius shouldn't be too large for this. So they might even be findable. Usually, I'd say, unless you really have no choice, which I mean, with 20 seconds, he doesn't really. You shouldn't be looking for something in Argentina that's like 30, 40, 50 kilometers away, just because they can still be small towns and very difficult to find. But yeah, he's close. And Baseman unfortunately ran into a dead end on the other side. Never found any information.
Yeah.
So he'll have to rely on his
Again,
landscape guess, which doesn't end up too great. And he immediately clicks on to the next round, not wanting to
a
spend
shame.
any more time there.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it has been the case for both the first two rounds so far that Pluki has found a bit more helpful information than Basement. But for what it's worth, it also did seem like the second round was more of a landscape guess for Pluki than anything else.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think he found anything on the signs that told him about where it could be specifically. So definitely more of a landscape guess there. And he never actually looked at the sign that I found, which was, I think, a sign pointing, the opposite way of the one that he found with the kilometers on it, which also mentioned distances to Salta, for example, and some other towns. So
Oh.
with that sign, he might have been able to, get a bit of a better estimation of where he was exactly, rather than, those small towns that he, probably won't be able to find. But it doesn't look like he will need that information at the moment, as he's about 5,000 points ahead roughly of Baseman already after 2 rounds. So, I mean, I say, already after 2 rounds, that still leaves Baseman 3 rounds to turn it around. But given with how it's gone so far, that seems like a tall task, as even if Plouky were to make some mistakes, Baseman hasn't really looked comfortable enough to where I would say he, has what it takes to make up that big deficit.
Right. Yeah, this is one of the countries that in order to play this map in particular, you would probably need a decent amount of practice to get to know the different landscapes and the different parts. And if perhaps you had a busy week or didn't have time to practice, might make things a lot more tough.
Yeah, and it's also kind of, I mean, you can practice it no moving just to get better at the landscapes, but if you actually practice it how most people usually would practice this maps, as in, you take your 3-minute games, just play through it, it's a very frustrating map to practice because most of the time you'll just be clicking through nothing and won't find much for most of your time. So I can see how people would get fed up with trying to practice it relatively quickly if that's the way they are practicing it.
Yeah, hopefully people are use the practice to both get region guessing down and also desensitize themselves to the super long straight road trauma.
Yeah. All right, then we'll see if we encounter another super long straight road in round 3 that we'll get into now. And yep, there it is.
The answer is yes. This road even longer and straighter than the previous one.
Yep. But I think I do see a curve on the horizon. Yeah, there is one, and there is, more importantly, a national road for Baseman. I couldn't actually. He went to the map too quickly for me to be able to read which one it is. But usually, especially with the 2-digit ones, but even with the 3-digit ones, you shouldn't be having too many troubles finding a national road in Argentina.
Yeah, very thankfully, these roads and the numbers of the roads show up at a pretty wide zoom.
It's the
Fluky also
188.
finding one, more clearly the road, yeah, road 188. Baseman, I don't know if Baseman found it, but he's moving again.
Yes.
Pluki has found the road itself very quickly. So now I believe what he's doing is just angle guessing, because I think Pluki probably can see a curve in the distance. Unfortunately, the 188 is incredibly long, so trying to angle guess on this thing might not yield the best results. Maybe it's worth looking around for more clues, but also this feels very, very rural and hard to find particular good hints in. But you never know.
Yeah, the thing is with a lot of Argentinian roads, they are actually, slightly different enough that,
Oh, I'm wrong. Yeah, there's a helpful sign right there.
yeah, they are actually, as I wanted to say, slightly different enough that you can try and get very close just purely based on the direction of the road. But in this case, Pookie does find a sign that helps him a lot more probably than just the directionality of the road.
Yeah, after finding the 188, saw a sign saying that Realico was 7 kilometers to the east and has found Realico and has found a good place. Baseman, I don't think Baseman has found the same sign, unfortunately.
I don't think he has, no. I also do think he's relatively close, though. He's a bit far zoomed in for me to see, really.
Yeah, but that is not the same curve that Pluki's on, and the one that Pluki's on is based more on uh, city evidence.
Yeah. I think he's one state over to the west. I think Realico is one state further east, if I spotted it correctly there. Yeah, I had said before, like it's doable to guess based on road direction, but this may be a little bit too generic in a sense. He does have that curve to the west, but there's probably, well, there definitely is, as we can see right there, as Pluki drops another 5 points, but gets fairly close. There's more than just one curve there. And yeah, probably out of frustration already slightly, just guesses a bit ahead of time and will drop another 1,500 points there.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, Baseman is probably feeling a little bit dejected, knowing that Plug is a good player and knowing that he's a couple thousand points down where he could be already. Must be frustrating. I can totally sympathize. This was a very hard map to practice.
Yeah, 2 more rounds to go. I think at this point it's looking unlikely. Still, never actually any reason to just guess ahead of time and not use up all of your time, unless you are sure you're in the right place. I mean, of course,
Right.
if you're wrong, then well, bad luck. But because on a map like this, especially, you can never know if you might say, okay, Plouky's very good. I'm not going to win against him, but you might still be good enough for a bonus point, right? So it's no real use throwing points away there.
Yeah, for sure. And as we were talking about last week on the Jake and Ollie cast, Division 1 has less time than the other divisions too. So every minute you have, every second you have is a precious resource. But
Yeah.
of course, resources only do so much when you're a couple thousand points behind and your opponent is Pluky. But
Mm,
who knows?
yeah. Well, let's start round 4 now. Well, this road is now actually long and straight. No curves here.
And interestingly, very, very little vegetation, very little large vegetation. There's a
Yep.
couple shrubs and bushes to the sides. Looks very sandy.
Very flat as
Uh,
well.
yeah. Any idea what general area this might remind you of from that
Mm,
sort of description?
around like I'd say Neuquén or further south, not too far south. But kind of this whole area of like provinces, Chubut, what was the one in the middle? No, Chubut is the one in the middle. Santa Cruz to the south and La Pampa, I think, to the
Yeah,
north. And obviously,
right.
Neuquén, but um, that kind of, it's a massive area, but it all can look fairly similar. It could
Yeah,
potentially be slightly more west as well, but a lot of the west is very mountainous. So you kind of have to be in like um, I guess the west part, but not too west. Otherwise, you'd see mountains, if that makes sense.
yeah, this is just like a general sort of like treeless Patagonia almost.
Yeah.
I think at this point, both of them have found signs. I'm not sure how useful they are. One thing that they did both find too was a mile marker that was one of the unhelpful mile markers because it doesn't actually say the number of the road that they're on.
Yeah, funnily enough, actually, like while I was creating the other seeds, I saw a mile marker, well, a kilometer marker, actually, like
Oops,
that for the
just
first
like alliteration.
yeah, for the first time in La Rioja province. And funnily enough, the second time I saw one was also in La Rioja province. So I was like, for a second, or, for a couple more seeds, I was like, is that like a specific meta for that province? And then I found it in other provinces as well, and that was gone.
All right, well, it looks like basement. Well, I thought the basement found like a very useful sign or a very useful building there, but perhaps not. Didn't really spend too much time with it.
It's a church, they're never useful. Yeah,
Maybe for the purposes of GeoGuessr.
well, all purposes.
Yeah,
The,
and for many other purposes
there,
too.
there, there wasn't anything written on the church that would have been important.
Yeah,
Could be maybe used as pinpointing later on, but wouldn't have given you anything in the general sense of where you are within the country.
yeah,
And I think that says Rio
true.
Negro on that truck there on the bottom
Oh,
left
does it? I thought
of
it said, yeah.
Plouky.
I actually thought it said capital region, and I was like, ah, never trust a truck, especially in Argentina.
Well, the thing is though, yeah, you can say never trust a truck in Europe, but because they can travel through countries and stuff like that. In Argentina is so big that you can trust the truck at least to be in like the right province or two.
Good point. Actually, yeah, good point. You wouldn't see a Misiones truck in
Oh,
like Tierra del Fuego.
I didn't even see what
Oh,
basement score was. He clicked on
Basement
so
scored a
fast.
20, yeah, a 25-47, clicking north of
Oh,
Rincon de
right.
los Sauces. Unfortunately,
Think,
pretty far north of where the actual location was. Pluki
yeah,
actually finding the right road there, but just going a bit too far west.
yes. Still 1900 points more than basement. I don't think Pluki actually found more than just that Rio Negro on the truck there. So a bit lucky in that sense, I guess, that it was the right province that he was in. But Yeah, just again closer than Baseman there. Um, I do think like if they've made it further into the town, if that is the route, the round that I remember, they would have found some more information that would have told them the province for sure. But neither of them made it that far, and at this point, Baseman is just too far behind. Like I could make a story of maybe, but he's more than 5,000 points behind. So, yeah, no
Yeah,
comebacks to be had here.
really, this is one of the maps where like finding one clue and not finding one clue that where the your opponent doesn't just gets you a lot of points, and that has happened unfortunately in basically all 4 rounds we've seen so far.
Yeah, Baseman has been funnily consistently far away though. I think he's been around like the 2,500 points mark in every round, which is interesting. But then let's get into the last round now. And well, I mean, we have civilization here, somewhat at
True,
least.
this road is not at all one of the long straight ones. We in
Uh,
fact see something about an aviation thing.
mm,
There's a plane on Basement screen and on Plouky screen. Yeah, aviation Argentina. We're near some kind of air base or airfield
yeah,
or airport.
he might have actually said more on that sign that Basement is coming up to now, but I couldn't read everything in time before he went away from it. Uh, no, I don't think it does actually. A lot of the signs mentioned northeast though, so
Mm-hmm.
at least somewhat of a region maybe they've got. But I think
Yeah.
with this round they should be able to find more information than that.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that this is also one of the rare pinpointable rounds because you're on a curve and there's a very
Oh,
distinct like part of the curve you're on.
Resistencia on Basement's
Yep.
screen there. It takes a while to
Basement is in
find it, but he does
Resistencia.
have it.
Yeah. Big city in the north, and the airport is very findable with a very distinct loop, a roundabout near the airport that looks suspiciously like the one that everyone started on.
Very suspicious. You might even say it might be that one. Uh,
Could it possibly be?
Well, we'll find out. Basement is guessing right now. And we'll end his game. I was expecting that. On
Yeah.
16,106 points. So with Plouky already on 19,062 points at the moment. Will unfortunately be a loss for Basement, but we'll watch Plouky and we'll see if he can
Yeah.
end up with another perfect round here. I myself
Unless Pookie guesses like in Russia and gets negative 3,000 points, but that seems unlikely.
We should implement that. If you're terrible, we will take points off you. But no, I feel like he is about to make it out of the airport. Into
Yeah, he's
Resistencia.
going the right direction for it. All he needs is a sign saying either welcome to Resistencia or like anything of the sort.
Yeah, he spent a lot of time on that specific point, I guess. I'm not quite sure why. But well,
Yeah.
coverage changes. No signs for you.
Yeah. Lots of signs around saying that it is some kind of airport or airfield.
Yeah, I think that
He knows
sign he's
that.
just coming up to that again disappeared because we switched coverage. Uh, might have everything he needs if he can get to it. He's not looking at that one in particular.
Yeah, unfortunately, none of these signs
That
say
disappeared again.
Resistencia. Oh no, and it's broken. That's
Well, he is in the
so
right
painful.
place,
But
so
yeah, Plouky has just,
almost.
I guess, near a big city, find an airport in an area you think is right. It's northeast. It's not the right one, but they're just right across the river, so Plouky's not going to lose any points anyways. Well,
Yeah.
that many.
Mm. And even if he would have, not too big of a deal. I actually didn't realize that, but Northeast actually limits it down to very little that it could possibly be, depending
Right,
on,
yeah,
on how
if
far
it's
you
not,
stretch the definition. I mean, technically, you could
yeah.
say Buenos Aires might be Northeast Argentina, but if you actually go far to the north, there's not much it could be.
Yeah, in the end, it's possible that just seeing airport and northeast might have been enough because there's only a limited number of places you would actually scan for, but especially with the lack of red soil. But Pluki finds the right area, Basement 5Ks. Hopefully, Basement is able to end with a bit of a positive note after maybe not doing as well as he may have hoped, especially compared to Pluki, who essentially found the right area in all 5 rounds.
Yeah, very good game from Plouky there. No aces, funnily enough. No perfect scores for him. But doesn't count, doesn't matter. He will get a win easily with over 7,000 points ahead of Bassman there. And we can now look at the stats for them now after. Oops. Wait. There we go. There's the stats. And yeah, Plouky now on 3 wins and 1 loss. Bassman after this loss on 2 wins and 2 losses. They were even before this. And that has a pretty big impact on the table because Division 1 was insanely close before this week. And it still is incredibly close, but now with Plouky in 2nd place and Bassman in 7th, you can see mostly on the average score that Plouky just has been having a bit of a better time, although I think this game accounts for a lot of that average score difference, to be honest.
True, yeah. Honestly, the average score like might make more sense as like perhaps some if it's possible to calculate a standard deviation of some kind. But especially because like rounds like this one impact the score so much more than rounds like world maps. But that's neither here nor there at the moment. What is important though is that Blue comes out this with a win, and the only person ahead of him in the rankings at the moment, I think, is Barry.
He
Is that
may
right?
be,
BW Liu?
yes. Let me just check. Yes, Barry.
Yeah. And Baseman's still doing well low to mid table. Not in relegation zone yet, I think, but hovering close by. So he probably wants to win a couple more games in order to avoid that end of season nastiness.
Yeah. It's definitely still is in a position where he could end up in the playoff places. He's just 2 points behind. But his priority is probably, not end up in the relegation zone, and anything above that would be a plus. So yeah, he'll just write this off. I'm pretty sure. May not have expected a win to start with. Definitely didn't after the first 2 rounds or so. But yeah, it shouldn't have too big of an impact on him. Losing against Plouky as well, I think, is something that you have to calculate in at the start of the season and be like, yeah, that's quite possible. So yeah, not too big of a deal for him. I don't think he's too big of a fan of Argentina and this map in particular anyway. So he'll just keep going next week. And yeah, I hope you all enjoyed watching this game. Thanks for doing so, and we'll see you guys again next time. Bye.
Bye bye.